3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Ash on Comics. I'm Ash, and man, I really want comics to stop using Photoshop. Like, I get it. It's like cool things you can do with like filters and stuff, but comics is about drawing, and like I just want people to be able to draw again. Now this is X-O Manowar #1, and I wasn't gonna do a video on this book. I wasn't going to read this book. I'm done with Valiant. It sold itself to a Chinese company. That company went and cleaned house and hired a bunch of progressive communists in the U.S. to run it, and they have run this once great publisher into the ground in less than a year. Those of you that know me, I've talked about Valiant. I love Valiant. 2012, 2017, fantastic. One of the best publishers in the business. They were going places. They were making waves. Not the big enough waves that I wanted them to. I think people just didn't know, and I think the industry is kind of mortally wounded enough that it's hard to make a splash these days. There's just not enough comic buyers to make a difference. You know, you could release Jim Lee's, X-Men #1 all over again. I mean, not like re-release it, but like just recreate that whole, oh my gosh, this excitement. That book that sold 8 million copies, it'd probably sell 200,000 a day. It'd probably be like, oh, it'd be a little splash in the pan, and people would golf clap and be like, hey, that was nice, and then we'd all move on. There's just not enough people. This is one of the reasons why the 80s and early 90s I consider to be the glory days of comics, is not just because comics were great back then, but fans were great. And you can say, oh, Ash, that's a bunch of malarkey, that was the speculator boom and it ruined comics. And I've had this argument time and time again. And frankly, that's just BS. Yes, there were a ton of speculators. There's no way X-Men #1 sells 8 million copies without a ton of speculators. In fact, probably 7 million of those books went to speculators, right? I firmly agree. But speculators don't ruin comics. Someone who doesn't care about comics the way you do, someone who's just buying them because they hope to resell them, they never want to read them, who cares? They just want to buy them and use them as toilet paper, or whatever the reason. If they're not buying them because they love the comic the way you do, it doesn't ruin comics. If anything, just buying the comic is all that matters. The only thing about loving the comic that matters is to you. You're the subjective, that subjective impression matters to you. If I hate a comic that you love, who cares, right? But that comic does have to sell. And so we fast forward to today, and one of the best comics on the shelf is Hawkman, and it's selling 13,000 copies. And a big reason of that is, #1, no one really cares about a goofy guy dressed like a hawk with wings. It's kind of silly in today's day and age. And I firmly admit I was one of those guys. I was prejudiced against it. But #2, there's just not enough market. So even if you hype it and you say, man, Venditti's knocking it out of the park, you might affect 1,000 fans. But in the early 90s, you would have affected 100,000 fans. Do you see the difference? And you could really swing the success of a comic. Now enter Valiant. Valiant came in the early 90s under Jim Shooter, and it made a pretty big splash, especially for a company that had a bunch of characters no one heard of. Marvel was doing as big as it's ever done. Image had launched. That was huge. And for Valiant to even be a blip on the radar was impressive. For them to make a splash, it was a phenomenon. Now, I didn't get into Valiant back in those days because I was a big Marvel fanboy. I was already buying all the Image stuff. I just couldn't do it. There was so much good comics, you couldn't get them all. It was raining good comics. Now people tell you, oh, the 90s were trash. Image was a bunch of trash. That's true. There was a bunch of garbage Image books. But every era of comics has a bunch of garbage. The difference is there was way more good stuff to just you could just put a blindfold on, spin around, and just, you know, like pin the tail on the donkey. You would hit a good comic. They were easy to find. They were everywhere. Even the mediocre comics were quality of a sort, and that's one of the big differences to today's age. There are comics today that are as well written as anything I read 30 years ago. The difference is they're much, much fewer and far between. And the big point is that the bottom of the barrel is way worse than the bottom of the barrel 30 years ago. The bottom of the barrel 30 years ago, I was like, that was kind of boring. Or, that was not the best writing. The bottom of the barrel today, you're just like, oh my God, how did this see print? This is like, I was making fun on Twitter the other day about that 4X book that Marvel put out, and I was posting panels from the comic book, and I made a comment like, this belongs on your refrigerator, you know, like the kids' art on your refrigerator, not in a comic book. The art was so bad in parts. Anyways, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about X-O Manowar. And like I said, I wasn't going to touch this because Valiant's gone in the tank. They've gone completely progressive, just doing the same thing that Marvel did in 2016 of just being like, oh, we're just here to check all the boxes, and, you know, who cares about our storied history? Well, the difference is Marvel can get away with it because they're the king of all comic companies. X-O was barely surviving as it was, and they were the best of the comic companies. Best writing, best art, and they still weren't making the numbers because of the industry I just described. So I had heard someone mention that X-O Manowar #1 was a reboot, and I was like, are you effing kidding me? You rebooted X-O, your best comic, you rebooted? Why? The Robert Venditti run was astounding, and then you followed it up with the Matt Kent run. I knew of the Hopeless Hallum, who's this guy, Emilio Laiso, whatever. I knew it was going to be mediocre, you know, whatever. Rebooting? So let's see what's inside. X-O Manowar, a 5th century Visigoth warrior prince, Aric of Dacia, or is that Dacia? I don't know. Tell me in the comments below. Was abducted and enslaved by aliens known as the Vine. Escaping their control, Aric bonded with unique sentient armor Shanhara, becoming X-O Manowar, the most powerful weapon in the universe. Returning to the Earth in the modern day, Aric and Shanhara use their incredible capabilities for the good of mankind. But mankind has other intentions. Dun, dun, dun! Here is the talent that created X-O Manowar and the original Valiant. And then here is the hopelessness that's working on the current. Notice editor. Heather Antos. Oh my gosh. What qualifications does she have? She just recently got promoted to senior editor, by the way. So she's an assistant editor at Marvel. Fails there, gets fired, goes off to some offshore gambling site, stays there for a month, presumably gets fired or quits, I don't know. And then she ends up back at Valiant, or over at Valiant, and then now she's editor, then she's a senior editor. Apparently, the more you fail, the more you drive Valiant in the ground, the more your Chinese masters go, bravo, thank you for destroying American culture. So, we open up in the book, and we're in space. I don't know exactly where, because Heather and her great editing skills don't know how to tell Dennis to put an establishing shot. Or in the case of you can't do an establishing shot, you might put a little box saying like Earth now or something just to set the scene. And why is this important? Because X-O goes through time and space. Now, he's not really like necessarily time traveling, but his adventures in the comic books don't necessarily always occur in the now, and they don't always necessarily occur on Earth. So like you can't just assume the reader knows what the hell they're looking at. Whatever. Shanhara, you've stopped talking. Yes, Aric. You never stop talking. I was told my assistance is unnecessary. When the solution is obvious. Death to the human plague. So this took me a second. I was looking at this and I was like, who's talking here? Why is the person here talking in the same bubble as this? And I was like, oh, Shanhar is translating. I think the letterer and the editor should have come up with a way to make this a little bit more, I don't know, intuitive. Because it really broke me out of the page. But whatever. Death to the armor thief. Vengeance will be. And if there's one thing I know for sure, that one thing you can handle, it's a half-derelict Zephyr, piloted by a war-crazed Vine Fleet survivor, suffering severe PTSD after months of isolation. So X-O makes quick work. Explosions. Bad alien. Well, the silence is unsettling. I've grown accustomed to your voice in my ear. I am not a podcast, Visigoth. So this advanced alien relic that's been around for thousands of years, talking to a 5th century Visigoth, uses a line, makes a joke about not being a podcast. Great writing, Dennis. Great writing. You're my partner. It's not my job to keep you amused. I'm saying I value your guidance. I got to this spot and I was like, what the hell happened to the last X-O series? Aric is like, okay, for those of you who haven't read X-O before, and I don't know the old 90s series, but they rebooted it in 2012. Aric is a cross between, do you remember Maximus from the movie Gladiator? Take him and cross him a little bit with the attitude and rough, that sort of rough edge of like Conan. He's kind of a Conan the Barbarian meets Maximus kind of character, right? Okay. Then he gets this super advanced space armor, which essentially makes him Super Iron Man. But the character himself is essentially, I just call him Conan in an Iron Man suit. Okay, here he's just talking like, I value your guy. You do? Yes, of course. I'm a 5th century warrior in a magic suit of armor. You know it isn't magic, Aric. And you are my trusted advisor, a wellspring of knowledge, human and alien. I'd be blind without your light. Did Dennis read an X-O comic ever? Just read the first issue of either Matt Kint's run or Venditti's run. This is so out of character to me. So X-O, he apparently is a nincompoop who always causes destruction. He destroys the ship. And instead of letting it just get ruined in space, because remember, look, he's in space. In space. Way up high orbit. Not close orbit, high. And then somehow brings it into orbit, brings it down, and then crashes it into a highway during rush hour. To which the suit says, well then, in the future, try not to park a 900-ton alien spacecraft in the middle of the freeway during rush hour. I just saved the city from certain doom. Some people would rather die than sit in traffic. That doesn't even make sense. Shanhara just said, don't do this. And then he says, I just saved the city. And then the suit is almost like playing his sidekick comedian guy who's following the bit and being like, oh yeah, some people. Anyways, so then we get to the bad guys. Oh, look at all this text. There's blah blah blah, text. It's not even important. It's just news reporting what the hell we just saw. So this is all unimportant. Then we get to these little crony bad guys. Save the day, piss off the world. Classic X-O. Ho ho ho. And then they get this villain guy. I got him. I got him. Meanwhile, in Harlem, calm down. We all got him. Bring it on, big man. This is our yard. Shanhara. And then, oh, my stars and garters. Did they just frickin' put X-O in a man bun? What? Oh, my God. And then, so now we get Shanhara's basketball as a team sport in which two teams, most commonly of 5 players each, compete with the blah, 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 explains basketball to him. Making some jokes, by the way. And then he's like, what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to shoot in the back. So he's like, throw it hit the backboard, it'll go on the hoop. So he's like, done. And he throws the basketball with the strength of Superman, and it practically destroys, well, it does destroy the basketball hoop. And the kid's like, whoa, holy man, what was that? Big dude trying to pop the ball. It did not go into the hoop. No. Bouncity bounce, pang. The physics are dubious. And then we see this woman with her little, look at that. So she drives a VW Bug. It's a classic, probably a 67. And then and then she's got classic, what is this? This is a classic modern woman bitch face. Just, I sense a man nearby doing man things. I'm so unsettled. Desmond, I told you that I wanted your homework finished first. It totally is, Mom, and I'm going to do all my reading before bed. Good deal. That means you have plenty of time to help me with dinner. That's okay, whatever. Mom and her kid, that's all fine. And then she's like, wave bye-bye to everybody and take these groceries. Mom, I can't. It's my basketball that they're playing with. Not anymore, it's not. So she just apparently, says you can't have a basket. It's not your basketball anymore. The kids get to keep it. What? Ah, Miss Morris, don't even play. Game over. Thank the gods. And then look at the derpiest face you've ever seen on X-O Manowar. Derpy. There's a woman. And then look. Oh, God, that contemptuous stare of him. Oh, there's a man in my presence. How many times do I have to tell you, weirdo? Nobody wants you here. Nobody asked for you. We don't need you. And if you don't keep yourself clear of these children, I will irradiate the tip of these boots just to kick your bulletproof butt out. And then put on my glasses and look smug, walk away with my kid. She'll do what to her boots? It's a comic book reference. During the Cold War, fictional heroes and villains often gained their powers by the way of nuclear explosions or vats of acid. That's ridiculous. Your stubbornness is ridiculous. No one trusts you here, Aric. Look at you just getting scolded now by the armor, just scolded by everyone. Tells him he needs to get some new clothes. Aric says, I like my clothes. Worn cotton. It breathes. God, the fucking man bun is just destroying Aric's mind. What the hell would a 5th century Visigoth be like? Oh, my cotton, it breathes. This dude's used to wearing, animal skins. He doesn't care about clothes that breathe. You fucking hopeless. So anyways, as if Aric doesn't know how the world runs. Apparently he just got to Earth yesterday. Or today. I don't know. I don't know if this is a reboot, because there's no story. It just picks off in the middle of whatever. People know who he is, so obviously he's been on Earth, but he doesn't understand, so the armor has to teach him, this era is run on commerce. You need money, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, nothing's free. And he's like, even food isn't free. It isn't? And he flies away off to Canada, to where the armor chastises him for being nude out in the wilderness. The nudity seems excessive, Aric. Why would the armor care if he's nude? Aric is always nude under the armor. That's so stupid. It's like, imagine your clothes talking to you and being like, chastising your nudity. It's so stupid. And so Aric apparently can kill deer with his bare hands. I guess he does have the suit, so whatever. To which he brings it back to the city, goes off to Canada, then flies back. I don't know why he'd fly off to Canada. Like, there's plenty of forests close to... Maybe he's in... I don't even know where he's at. Oh, he's in Harlem, so it's New York, right? So, yeah, there's tons of forest in New York City. Like, not New York City, sorry. Surrounding New York State. But he goes off to Canada. I guess he's got a special spot that he likes. Then he's like, no need to lurk back in the shadows there, friend. Come and join me. He's just roasting a whole deer on a spit on the streets of New York. You sure? It's food. It's free. And there's too much for just me. Yeah, a whole deer, you could feed 100 people. I don't know. Like, you could feed a shit ton of people. But he apparently just eats a whole one by himself. I don't think Dennis knows anything about hunting. I mean, I barely know anything about hunting, but I apparently seem to know more. But so the suit tells him that there's some missile flying nearby or something. So he's like, well, then I'm fed. And he leaves the deer for all the homeless people to chow down, and they're getting the best dinner of their lives. So meanwhile, there's this rocket. And there, what is it? Looks like a ballistic missile, but I find no record of that specific design. There doesn't appear to be an explosive warhead. Can I destroy it? Yes, but not over the city. Obviously. No more obvious than the last 5 times. Now, immediately, if you caught what I was reading, is there a warhead? No, there's no warhead. But they're going to destroy it anyway. Now, I don't know if you're following along as well as I did, if you caught what I caught. But at this point, I was like, oh, this isn't a missile. This is a rocket. Like to maybe send up a satellite into space or something. And Aric's going to destroy it because that's what they've already set the scene for, that he just destroys things. He's just a big derp. Oh, here's a basketball. I destroyed your hoop. That's what Aric does. He's just a total nincompoop. So, yep, they destroy the rocket, and then there's this Eli Musk character named Mr. Whitaker who was showing off the rocket, and he was going to do, some, I don't know, launching something, some private thing. And then the news is on scene going, oh, billionaire tech mogul Troy Whitaker attempted to launch his much-rumored commercial space program this evening, only to have his Troy Toy 6 rocket ripped out of the sky by X-O Manowar. This, just a latest string of similar attacks perpetuated by New York's flying vigilante. Oh, get it? X-O just interfered and he destroyed the stuff. Meanwhile, here's a kid's... sorry, we don't know that yet, but there's the VW bug. Does it look familiar? It's running away from the cops. Now, I don't know if you've ever driven a VW bug. I have. They don't move, okay? It's a little, I think it's a 4-cylinder engine. It's got about 40 horsepower. They're fun little classic cars back in the 80s. You can soup them up. I did have a friend who actually, when I was young, his dad did racing and stuff, and he had a VW bug that they had souped up for racing and stuff, and it was pretty slick. But this is just a normal, anyways. So apparently run away from the cops. You don't run away from the cops in a VW bug, is all I'm trying to say. And then that rocket that X-O was going to destroy, not over the city, remember. Apparently, he gets to destroy it over the city because it just explodes and almost kills the people in this car. And then the cops are driving. And then it's like, oh, shit. They're going to go through the fire. The cops, they hit it. Go, go, go. I'm going. And then X-O's coming. You're staying. Face down on the ground right now, says the cops to X-O. Okay, we're coming, man. We're sorry. And then apology accepted. And X-O just tosses the car. Splash. I said everybody down. And it's like the kids. Remember the kids playing basketball? What a quinky-dink. And X-O recognized, Desmond? To which X-O says, I'm afraid there's a misunderstanding. I can't talk today. Misunderstanding. You back off right now, superhero. These are not fleeing criminals. Not another step. Bang, bang. They start shooting at him. Of course, it's pointless. And then the kids run away. They're frightened children. Tread carefully here, Aric. This will not look good. Remove your weapons. And then all of a sudden, Big Bad Mama's hair is turning white. She's watching. Good God. Gasp. Kid shows up. Hey, Mom. Desmond, I'm going to go do my homework. Runs in his bedroom. And then Aric shows up. Knock, knock, knock. I threw your car into the bay. Apologies, ma'am. Huh? Why would you open with that? Oh, God. It's like the little sidekick buddy cop humor. I will fix this. And at first you see her just like, look at this. This is like total. Look at that pose that she's making. It's total modern. This is modern kind of, not feminist, but it's just, they always portray like the upset women just holding their, I don't know, just that pose is just it's such a trope. And then the kid's talking and she's just like, hush, Desmond. And then Aric the derp is just like, I want to help people. I'm trying to help people, but sometimes my instincts get the better of me. Oh, God. And then she just hugs him. Thank you. Thank me. Say you're welcome. You're welcome. God, Aric is just a total beta male in this version. Like, he doesn't listen to the armor. He commands the armor. Anyways, now she's just like, don't worry about the car. My kid's the only thing that matters. And then she insists that he lives with her now. We have a spare room in the back. You'll be staying with us from now on. Like, what? That's not necessary. To which the kid's like, yeah, don't argue. Anything she says while she's walking away, already done deal. Like, why? This kid, okay, I grew up as a kid with a single mom. As a boy with single mom, you don't want men in your house. Like, that's just not cool. But this is written by modern progressive man babies that don't seem to understand masculinity of any sort. So now he's looking up on the internet with his armor. What does the internet say I should do first? Buy a new car. Oh, God, the jokes, they don't stop coming. Hilarious. Yeah. Oh, right, your princely fortune is back in the 14th century. In that case, you can start by taking everything apart. It's in the 14th century? I thought he's 5th century. Did we miss some story? I don't know. Who knows? This is issue number 1. Anyways, he bumps his head. Cue the laugh track. And then the homeless guy that he met earlier and gave some deer meat to shows up. And what do you know? He just happens to be an expert at fixing up cars. He used to work at a junkyard. And so he's like, I can help. To which case, like, great. And then more trouble as the suit gives X-O some, breaking news. We're getting reports of Ukraine bombing at the Kiev, whatever, Boryspil International Airport. Hundreds presumed dead and countless thousands injured. So X-O's on the case. I don't know when X-O turned into Superman. Dun, 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 X-O. So he shows up to Ukraine and he's talking to the armor, and the armor says, according to the internet, Russia, I can't even. According to the internet, these guys are a bunch of bumbling idiots, and they cause havoc and destruction everywhere they go. And is it any wonder? It's because they listen to the internet. According to the internet, Russia is trying to destabilize the Ukrainian government by backing various insurgent groups. I don't need to hear about politics. Yes, it says every comics fan ever. We don't want your politics in our books. Just point me in the direction of the murderers. Murder is subjective in war. Oh my God, Dennis, why is the armor chastising or lecturing Aric about... Dude is a fucking general. He has slayed countless men. He doesn't... Has Dennis ever read an X-O book? He doesn't need a murderous subject. Oh, God. Who blew up the airport? We don't know yet. Okay, then. We'll disarm everyone. That's not... Now he's disarming people. He's just all goody-goody guy. I just disarm people. We'll disarm everyone and sort it out after. Incoming. Another stinger. Bigger. Much bigger. Koosh. Simmer down now, Visigoth. The war's over. You lose. Dun, dun, dun. Remember this guy that we saw? Apparently he's got a big armor too, and he's gonna blow up X-O with it, I guess. Yay. So, this book was silly. This book reminded me a lot of a Brian Michael Bendis book. Not quite as much of the silly Billy non-stop antics, but with some. But the part that reminded me about a Brian Michael Bendis book is just how the story goes nowhere. It's just a random or seemingly random string of events that the writer just sort of connects the dots. Just things just happen. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm playing basketball, and then the mom shows up, and then I get a thing on the radio, I gotta go help, there's a rocket, look, it blew up, and then the kids that I was playing with, they stole the mom's car now. But none of this is matter. It's fluff. It's there to fill pages. Everything that I just went through in this comic book, think about it. Did any of this stuff matter? The only thing that matters is this page right here, which is exactly how a Bendis comic works. It's just filler, random stuff just happening, and then at the last page, big something, and like, gotta buy the next issue. I hate that. Bendis is so terrible about it. I'm not an expert. I don't really know about Dennis Hopeless Hallum's books. I can't speak on his tropes or how he writes. This book did not impress me. I didn't hate it as much as I just felt like it doesn't feel like X-O at all. And I feel like the editor should put down her milkshake and maybe also pick up some X-O Manowar books and learn the history of the damn characters so that you can edit the damn book properly. So happy for you on your big promotion to senior editor. Not that you're going to have a company to work for much longer, because this crisis we're going through is going to kill comics. And Valiant selling 5,000 in issues not going to survive. But they are powered by communist China, so maybe, state funding is communist. Who knows? The party will keep them alive. And if you disagree with me on this book, if you feel like this is good, hey, you can support communist China, who likely unleashed a global pandemic the likes the world has never seen and has the theoretical possibility of destroying this country. You can continue to support their books. I don't mean to be doom and gloom. I know all of you sitting here listening to this, you are dealing with your own hardships and troubles, and I wish all of you the very, very best. But it's important not to sugarcoat things either, right? Like, we could be facing something very dire and serious, and if that's the case, the first step is to acknowledge it so that we can come together and do what needs to be done to fix the problem. And one of those things that we might have to acknowledge is that maybe China, possibly, I'm not saying maybe it's only a 1% chance, I don't know. But there's a possibility that China unleashed this on purpose. So, I haven't heard anyone talking about this. I think it's pretty foolish not to at least entertain the idea and say, what if? Can we rule that out? Because all the reports I'm hearing is that China's saying, we got the virus under control. And I go, all right, you got it under control. The rest of the world doesn't. Does that mean you guys already had vaccines before you unleashed it? I think they're lying. I think it's not under control, and they're lying. And I hope to God they didn't do this as a malicious. This would be an act of war. because that would be worse than a global pandemic. That'd be World War III. So I don't mean to be doom and gloom. Hopefully, this is H1N1 all over again. Because remember how that was a big scare, then it blew over? So my prayers are with all you guys. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you're being safe, staying clean, stay away from your elderly family for the time being, and let's get through this together. Read good comics. Leave your comments down below, and hopefully YouTube didn't shadow ban this video into oblivion due to my mentioning the virus that's not supposed to be named, because God forbid we talk about it. All right, thanks for watching.